Hey guys, Birdie here with Redbird Designs, and just getting ready to do our July Joy Box. And you guys, I think this might be my favorite. I love this color scheme. I love the blue and the yellow and the green. I feel like it just is so pretty. I know I've said that before in the past, but each month I feel is my new favorite. So, and that's how crafting works, right? Okay, so the lemon squeezy with the lemon. Now I sent ribbon with it because I had originally was like, oh, this ribbon would be super pretty, you know, just an added little detail to it, but I also just love it plain. So I can't wait to see your guys's ribbon, no ribbon, and if you don't do a ribbon, you can also do a different color. Maybe it's an all stained background, but anyways, you've got the two pieces of ribbon, the blue check and the lemon. You have a piece of wire in your kit, and then you have a clip that you can use to attach it to that, and I'll show you how to do that at the end. And then the actual board and pieces. So this project is 14 by 14, and this is probably going to be our last big project. We are making plans for the new year coming up. I know it's only July, but it's always the season for small businesses to plan the next year and kind of try and get ahead of the craziness that happens during the holidays, right? So your pieces all come in this block, and they're attached using a, what we call in the laser world, a bridge or a tab, or it's just a piece where the laser skips. So in this case, it's right here on this. You can turn it over and find it. But what you want to do is just kind of give it a little bit of a wiggle. And I like to also use my fingernail and kind of snap that little bridge. You can use an X-Acto knife or a box cutter to snap it even more if needed. But just take care and go slow when snapping out those pieces. So there's that, and then the lemon squeezy is in its own little box, and again, it's using those tabs. So when you get ready to push them out, just take care. I kind of go back and forth, up and down until it snaps out. Sometimes it's helpful to find out where that tab is. So in this case, it's right here by the L and the E. And so I can focus on wiggling it around the tab to get it to snap out. There we go. All right, so we're going to tape some stuff down. And then you also have the frame that sits over it. And I love the slatted background of this. I think that's super modern, but also it could go and be totally rustic as well, like slats of wood, and you could really create some pretty rustic styled slats using, you know, some different distressing techniques and stuff. I decided to just paint mine the one color. So I'm just taping down my letters. I don't think I'm going to tape anything else. I think everything is pretty big that I can paint the lemons individually, and then also my leaves. So let's see, let me find my blue. I thought I grabbed it. So I'm using, for colors today, all of my colors are Benjamin Moore colors. If you don't know, you can get samples at any of the hardware stores, Lowe's, Home Depot, Aces. And samples are 8 ounces of paint, which is about this size. So it's very comparable to just buying a big thing of paint at the craft store, minus Walmart. Because I think a size like this at Walmart is like $2 or something like that, $2.50 maybe. But at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, these tend to be $3 to even $5 depending on the color. At the hardware stores, the samples are $5 to $6. So keep that in mind. If you are wanting a little more variety too, you can use any paint chip and get the color that you want. So anyways, back to the colors I'm using. I'm using a Kensington blue. I'm gonna use a little bit of black. I'm using my favorite antique wax, which is a Walmart brand, Waverly brand, wax with stain inside of it. I'm using Navajo white, which is just a creamy white, courtyard green, Yellowstone for my lemons, and then a sweet basil, which is a darker green for doing some highlights and or shadows there for my greenery. I'm going to use a large flat brush to paint my background. This is a little bigger than I want, but let's see if I can find something else. Out of large brushes? Might have to, oh, here's an old crusty one. That works. So anyways, we're going to start by painting our background here because this is our biggest piece. We want to paint it a nice light coat, and then we'll come back with a second coat to get a nice solid color. Wood is super porous, so I like to dip my brush in water just to get a little bit of my paint more fluid, water it down just a little bit to help it flow better, because paint is going to want to just soak every drop of liquid I have on my brush. Having that water in my bristles and having the paint just a little bit loose really helps that paint flow, so I'm not struggling by pushing and pulling that paint around, and I get a smoother finish. Remember, we want to paint in nice light coats, nothing heavy. Light coats will dry a lot faster. And again, against popular thought would be like, well, one thick coat will dry just as fast as 2 light coats, and that's not really true because paint will dry in layers. And so your top coat, like if you're putting on a thick coat so you don't have to do 2 coats, well, typically that top coat will dry faster. And the bottom will stay wet longer because it's sealed underneath, and can cause issues in the process of either gluing up and not adhering well, and trying to get a thick coat on that's smooth is a lot harder because that paint is so thick. You'll start to see lines, brush stroke lines. Will start to catch on you because it's going to want to, that top piece will want to dry, and you're going to be trying to smooth it out, and causes lots of issues. So you'll notice how splotchy this looks, and that's okay. Kind of think of this as your primer coat. This is also the coat that's sealing the wood, so the next time it goes on, it's not going to be as porous, and it will go on a lot smoother. We're not going to need as much water for that second coat. There we go. I also noticed I didn't go all the way to the edge because my frame is going to cover that, and so I don't really need to. You really just need to go to the edge of these open slats. I went over just a little bit in certain areas. So now that that's painted, we're going to put our coat on our frame. I'm going to use my antique wax for that. And because I want to create a stained look, I'm going to use a baby white. And dip it in your wax, your stain, or your paint. You can do this with even a dark brown paint if you don't have a antique wax or stain that you like to use. This works just as well with a dark brown paint, or any color actually, if you wanted to do a gray frame or a black frame, or white, or even a light brown. There, I have a color called Warm Sand that I frequently, I should say, use as a stain, and it looks really pretty, almost like a golden oak color. So I stained my letters, and staining letters can be a little cumbersome because you can't really just easily rub it on. So what I do is I kind of tap and just gently brush over the surface. These letters are delicate. They are a little thicker than what we've used in the past, but just take care, go slow. You can always use a brush and brush them on, and then gently wipe off any excess. My son just got home from work. It's supposed to be super hot today, so they went into work super early. He was up at 4 this morning so they could beat the heat. There we go. So just take your time on that, however you decide to finish them. You can also just use a makeup wedge and paint them that way with some tapping. Okay. So anyways, what I was saying about sizes, we are looking at the future of Joybox, and we're gonna do a couple just small modifications. I think every year businesses kind of do that. They kind of look at the year and what worked and what didn't. And one of the things that we will, we're getting rid of the reward system. We found that it just wasn't being utilized as well, and so that is going to go to the wayside. We will try and do something else there. We're not quite sure yet, kind of playing around with some different ideas, because I do feel like it's important to, I just feel like it's kind of just a nice thing, you know, like it's nice to be, I don't know, just to have some acknowledgement, I guess, I don't know. Anyways, we'll think of something there, but because it wasn't utilized, because we didn't see a big we didn't see a lot of people utilizing it, I guess I should say. So the reward system is going to be removed. Here, let's see, when did we start it? I think we just started it in September. We wanted to give it the full year, you know, just to make sure that, you know, it wasn't a lull in the holidays or something that for the reason why people weren't utilizing it. So we're giving it a year, and then we will stop with the reward system. The other thing that we are looking at is standardizing our box sizes to help make the fulfillment process smoother. Because we are really focusing on growth, and we want to ensure that we can grow and with the changes that are coming up. So we are really focusing on growing Joybox this year. We've kind of been stagnant, and we've been okay with that, just with different things in life that have been happening, and haven't really focused on growth. And we were okay with that. But this year we want to grow, and one of the things that we're looking at is, if we grow, we want to make sure that we can handle the growth. And one of those is the fulfillment process. And to do that, to streamline that, is to use one size box every month. It makes shipping so much easier. We are thinking about going to a bag, because that might streamline it. That might make it a little less bulky on your end too. We have heard that, the boxes can get kind of bulky. And if we do go to a standard size box, maybe that won't be the case, but we're also trying to listen to some of the things that you guys have said in the past. And sometimes those boxes can just get to be too much. If we go to an envelope system, though, I'm really trying to limit plastic. So I'm looking at a paper mailer, but we'll have to see. We're still doing research on that. And, sometimes we just can't get away from plastic, but we do our best to stay away from it as possible. So we've put a coat on everything. Now I'm coming in and sanding everything down. This sands down all my brush strokes to give me a smooth surface for my next coat. It also sands down any fibers that might be standing up from when we got them wet. So wood doesn't like moisture, and when it gets wet, it expands. It's like a sponge. And so sometimes that causes the fibers to stand up, and then causes the finish to feel rough. And so if you have a super rough area, you take a sandpaper after it. I'm going to let my other pieces sit for just a little bit longer while I get my background painted. The other thing that we are working on is finalizing or working on deciding the projects for the year. That would be super helpful. I'm a very fly by the seat of my pants crafter, and in the past I've always just been like, well, I don't want to figure out what I want to do for Joybox so far in advance, because what if styles change, or what if this changes, or whatnot. But to successfully grow, it is something that I'm just going to have to embrace and trust the project that I do is still going to be amazing when I do it, and it will be fine. Just a little bit of growth there in my own thinking. because I am just like, from month to month, I like to do different things. And the thought of finalizing something 6 months in advance is a little bit nervous. But it's going to be fine. It is going to be fine. Look how great that coverage is. So I did add just a little bit of water to my paint, kind of mixed it all around together, but not nearly as much water as before. And the reason for that is because some of that paint that had been sitting there did get a little tacky, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't super tacky, that it was going to cause my paint to not flow very well. So any kind of paint that sits on your palette for an extended period of time, and I'm talking like 5 minutes, can get tacky and it can get hard to push around. And so it's important to kind of look at that and see if that's causing your issues, and to add a little bit of water if needed. The other thing is you want to make sure that you don't have so much paint on your bristles that you're getting down inside there. If you are, you can use some sort of pointy tool and kind of pull it out. It's a big enough that you could even just use like a skewer or something. If you get excess paint in there, kind of scrape that out. And there we go. And there we go. I love that color. All right, so this is my frame. I'm not going to put a second coat on it, but if you wanted it to be darker, then you would do that at this time. My letters, I'm happy with the darkness of those. So now I'm going to bring over my lemons and my stems here. And I painted my greenery, but not my stems. I don't know why I did that. So I did pull out a little dark brown. I brought out some Falcon Brown that I forgot about. And I must have got busy talking and I didn't paint my stems here. And you could honestly just paint the entire thing green. Either way. Here it's where it gets a little complicated. I am going to switch to a brush, or it gets a little crowded, not complicated. It's not complicated. It's crowded. Simply because I don't want brown on that. So I'm actually going to pull my little stem away from that and just bring my brush straight down my stem here. All the way to the end. There we go. Let that dry for a few minutes. Let's sand the lemons. And we'll put a second coat on. There we go. All right. I'm going to put a second coat on my leaves. And like I said, you could just paint your leaves and your stem all one color to simplify it. I'm going to use my brush for this little piece that's crowded here. I like to turn my piece to help make sure my brush strokes, I'm not fighting my brush strokes here. There we go. All right, my background's still wet. So I am going to work on adding a little detail to my lemons while everything's drying. So I'm placing my lemons on here, kind of thinking about what the bottom part of my lemon is. And I'm going to use that baby wipe that I used to apply the antique wax. It's still got a little bit of wax there. And I'm just going to come in and bring in some of that brown on the bottom of my lemon. Actually, I'm going to grab a little bit more. It's kind of dried out. If you get a little too much like this, you can grab a clean part of that makeup or baby wipe and just wipe it. I kind of want it to be a little bit of a stipple, so I'm kind of tapping it so it's not smooth looking, kind of giving it that dimpled look that lemons have. So I kind of rub it on, and you'll notice that I kind of get thin and thick, and that gives us that illusion that it's round. And then once I rub it on, I kind of tap it to stipple it. And then I'm going to take a chip brush. I'm going to grab some of that dark brown that I have, and I'm just going to tap it on that bottom bit for a little bit of some darker stippling. Kind of looks like it's a mustache. Might got a little bit too dark there, but I think it's going to be fine. Okay. And then I'm going to grab a clean baby wipe. I'm going to grab a little bit of this Navajo white, and we're going to go and we're going to start by putting the yellow on there, tapping some of it off. And then I'm going to go grab some of that white and put it on there with it. Putting both colors on there just kind of softens that white. And right in the center here, I'm just going to create a circle where, or maybe an oval, kind of where the light would hit. Okay. And then it's a little bit harsh. So I'm going to go back to the yellow, and I'm going to go around it and soften it up, kind of blending those colors together. So I've got more yellow now on my baby wipe, which is going to help blend that white, just kind of soften it up as we go out. Kind of creates that little spot where the light's hitting. This one was a little bit more round because, well, this oval I feel is more round. This one I kind of created more of an oval because it feels a little longer there. And that was all using the baby wipe. Okay, let's add some dimension to our leaves. So I'm going to use a darker green You can also just use the green you have and add some of that dark brown to it. I love doing that method as well. So I'm going to start with some of that dark green on my brush. And I'm going to just bring in a brush stroke to the bottom of my leaves for a little dimension, some shadowy bits. And they're all kind of different. Some I'm making a little thinner, some thicker in areas. And the leaves might be turned just a little bit more. Along this branch, turned away, turned towards us. It's all going to give us a little bit of a different look. And already those leaves look so much better. Love that. Okay, so then I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to go and grab some of my original Courtyard Green on my brush. And I'm going to go grab some of this yellow. I want a lighter green now. You can always mix green with white, but mixing it with yellow gives us more richer green. Mixing it with white can give us almost of a minty color instead of a lime spring green, leaf green, I think. There we go. All right. And that's it. I think that's it. Oh, I did use a little bit of black on the stems. So I'm going to grab that out. I'm going to use my brush and just bring in a couple lines. Softly just dragging my brush along the stems. Just adding some detail lines there. There we go. All right, I'm going to glue my lemons on. And then I'm going to go grab my frame and glue that on. And then we'll talk about the bow. Oh, I did this backwards, you guys. That's okay. That is okay. I'm just going to take my baby wipe and kind of wipe away some of that shadow. I'm okay with it being shadowy on the top, honestly. But I'm just going to soften it up just a little bit. And the reason being is it could be being shadowed, created a shadow from the leaves, right? So if you got the wrong side, no worries. It's all good. It's all good. There we go. All right, we'll put that aside for a second. Let's bring over our base and our frame. And we're going to glue this down, and then we will talk about our bow. There we go. Sometimes when we paint our pieces, because of the wood and the wad and the liquid in the paint, our pieces can get a little bit warpy, like this right here has a little bit of a warp to it, where if I press this down, this wants to pop up and vice versa. So it's always nice to have clamps or something heavy to help hold the piece while it sets up. I just want to make sure once I clamp it, sometimes it wants to shift it. So you almost want to hold it for a second until this glue has just a second to set up. Otherwise, it's going to pull that frame. Sometimes once you've got 3 down, we're good to go. So just for a little extra precaution, I'm going to throw clamps on the middle part of that as well, and we'll put that aside and talk about our bow. So I'm just going to undo this one just so we can see what I did here. You got 2 pieces of ribbon, the blue check and the lemon. You can use one, both, or neither. So let's talk about how to use them. So to start with, you're going to fold your piece in half. Well, to start with, I want you to cut just a little piece off. Let me just take it. So I have 4 inches here. So fold your piece in half. Okay, it's going to look like this, right? You're going to measure down 4 inches, and then you're going to take your scissors, and from the folded side up and out, you're going to cut at an angle. This is going to give us that dovetail look. That gives us 4 inches to use as a center if we want to, and it kind of shortens this up because they are quite long. You're going to trim the tails as well at the end, but that gives us this little piece for the center. So I fold it in half, and then I'm going to fold it over on itself, creating the loop on the right. And I'm going over that fold mark, and then I'm going to bring the other one in and fold it on top. So we're creating an X, 2 loops, 1 on each side. Now, how big your loops are is dependent on you. I kept mine pretty small because I didn't want it to get too crazy. You could even go smaller. Let's just bring it in a little bit. And then I'm just going to let it sit there. Because it's wire, it's going to hold its shape, and then we'll come in and pinch it and fluff it in a minute. So I'm going to do the same with the lemon. We do not need an excess piece of this. Unless you want the lemon to be your decorative knot, you could do that as well. Fold it in half. Put the fold on top of the fold of the blue. Then we're going to bring this in over the top. Now here's where we want this loop to be smaller than that so we can see this loop peeking out. So we want to be able to see that loop there. Then we're going to bring this one over and again make it a little smaller so we see that loop. And then I'm just going to gather and pinch these pieces together in the center like this. Okay. We're going to take the wire and I'm going to wrap it around once, twice, and then I'm going to twist it in the back. Okay. And now at this point, we can kind of adjust our tails downward. We can put our fingers inside these loops, open them up, kind of twist them a little bit, and then we can trim our tails. So we're going to do that dovetail technique, fold it in half from the fold up and out. I'm going to just trim these just a little bit shorter. There we go. I want the lemons to be a little shorter than the check, so I gave those just a little bit of a haircut, and I might even go a little shorter here. And once you get it attached, you can trim it even more. So, you know, it doesn't cover up too much. Okay, so for the centerpiece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold. So if you lay it flat, I'm going to fold one side in and then fold the other side in. So those edges meet in the middle there. So this is your back and this is the front. And we're going to just wrap this around. I'm going to open up this wire. So I'm going to have one wire point towards one loop, one wire point towards the other loop, and then I'm going to bring that folded center, lay it in the center there. I'm going to bring the other side over on top of it so it overlaps, right? Just like that. I have wire, wire. I'm going to bring those wires together and sandwich that center in, securing it in place. You can also use a hot glue gun on this step and glue that center together. But I just love how that gives that pretty front, kind of a polished little bow. Okay, and then we want to take your clip here. Now you could definitely just take this wire and maybe go through one of the slats, come back around to the top and tie it in that way. But I thought this would be better. It'd give you more flexibility on placement. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the wires, and it's got 4 holes on each side. So we're going to string or thread the wire through. So it looks like this. One of that wire's going through, and we want to bring it so the sticky 3M is facing up. And this is where we're going to attach it. Then I'm going to take that other wire, bring it to the one I threaded through the clip, and I'm just going to twist it until it's secure. And then we can cut this excess. And then I'm going to just take that excess that I see there and just push it down behind that 3M. So now we have the clip attached, the adhesive clip attached to our bow. And at this point now we can decide where we want this. We can remove the backer of the sticker, and let me just lift this up so I can see what I'm doing here. I kind of want it up in that corner. There we go. Find your placement, press, and you're good to go. And then for my tails here, I might just kind of fold them up a little bit. I kind of like that look of a folded tail. It's almost like it's blowing in the wind, or I don't know. I like the look. And there we go. So that's with a bow, right? So that's how you do the bow. Let's come back and glue up our pieces here. So before you attach the bow, I definitely would figure out where you want your lemons. Because if you don't want the bow, you might want to center this arrangement here. Whereas on the other one, I kind of pressed the leaf branch system closer to this, knowing I'd have a bow up here. But this one, I don't have a bow, so I think I'd center it more, if that makes sense. So before you attach your bow, you know, kind of think about that. You can also just kind of bring it down so your bow kind of sits here. You can kind of play around with those, or no bow, center it. So this one isn't going to have a bow. I kind of want to see what it looks like centered. So we're going to just add some glue to the back. And we're going to center this guy. So we have two options. When removing tape from your pieces, a quick tip is to lay them upside down on the table so your letters are on the table. You're removing the tape from the letters. Really helps ensure that you don't break them because they are down on that sturdy table. Instead of being pulled up in the air, can cause those pieces to bend and break. So for lettering, I like to add a little bit of glue on my palette here. I use these little bitty bits of my makeup wedge, and just as if I was painting them, I'm going to add glue. And then this lettering is script lettering, so it's not super straight. So I love that because then you don't have to get too crazy. Kind of just think about your edging maybe. And there we go. That's it without the bow. So I can't wait to see your guys's, can't wait to just see if you've decided to do a bow or no bow. But that is our lemon squeezy project for the month of July. And I just absolutely love how this one turned out. I think it's gorgeous. I love the coloring of it. It's just so bright, and the blue just really makes that yellow pop. So don't forget to post pictures in the group, and we look forward to seeing all your projects. I hope you guys have a great rest of the month and you're able to squeeze in some crafting. And yeah, have a great July. Happy crafting, and we will chat with you later. Bye.